Keep on rolling. Dustin Dopirak from the Bloomington Herald. How are you, sir?
Doing good, Jim. About yourself?
Great. How was your weekend?
Fantastic.
Of course, you had to work like the rest of us, another
Yeah.
6-day week. But with the game yesterday, at least it was an early game. I
It
much
was.
prefer a noon game over a 9 o'clock game in Chicago. I can promise you that. But that is in the offing tomorrow night, not only for us, but for Indiana, for the guys. And I wish I still had Charlie on here, but that can't be fun to make that trip. It's cold. I mean, once you get in, you're warm and all that stuff, but it's still, your body knows it's 9 o'clock in Chicago. And man, it's hard. And it is different for people, but until you become a pro, where these NBA guys, they do it more, but it's difficult for some of these guys to get up. It's not the same. They just played at 12 noon on Saturday. Now they're going to Chicago just a couple of days later and playing at 9 o'clock at night. It's taxing.
Yeah, no, it is. I mean, and obviously they're coming off the previous bye. They had 7 days off, so that helps. I mean, it allows them to recover a little bit faster. And they are college kids. I mean, I miss having that level of metabolism to move on quickly, but it does get to be a grind for these guys during the year. And like you said, like for as much youthful energy as they have, they don't have that kind of pro ball endurance that sets in when it's every night or when it's close to every night. It takes some getting used to. I mean, I obviously think where it really hits you for them, it's not so much the 9 o'clock Tuesday night. I mean, I think they've got the juice for that. It's the getting up and going to class on Wednesday when you get back. Sort of deal, because you get right back on the bus, or you get on the charter, or whatever it is.
And Bob Knight used to beat that drum big. He hated that more than anything, and he made it known.
Yeah, no, and it's tough for Indiana in particular. It's a tough one because it's, I mean, you're still on Eastern time, and you catch some of these games because you are this far out, this close to the central time zone. You end up getting a lot of these games that, I mean, obviously everybody's playing everybody, but it's a little bit different in terms of, this is a drive trip for them, but they're changing time zones, and people are more willing to put Northwestern on the 9 o'clock game. Indiana still gets some home games that way. Obviously, that's 9 o'clock, but in terms of television windows, kind of, leaning the later ones towards the central time zone teams, you're making short drives, but changing time zones and getting 9 o'clock tips, and you still got to get back for 8 a.m. Central Time class. No idea who's got what, as far as that's concerned. And it's a trip. Yeah, no, I mean, and obviously, there's all these trade-offs in terms of what you got to do to grow the game, but to take advantage of as many television windows as you have, and to get a 7 o'clock and a 9 o'clock on prime time every night, and maybe 11 o'clock out west, you're putting a lot of central and eastern teams on 9 o'clock tips. And, that's leading to guys, again, having to get back to class in the morning. So it is taxing on them. You are asking a lot to financially grow the game, to, get as many teams as you can on TV, and make it a TV sport, and make it feel constant from, at least January, but preferably November through March, that this is a game that you can find on at any time. You can find college basketball on your TV just about any time. Again, no, but it asks a ton of the kids, and it always has, and that's what we've been taxing these kids for years.
At least, well, now they're potentially getting paid for it. Well,
some of it, yes.
Yeah.
A little bit.
Looking down as Indiana travels to Northwestern, one of the lower 4 teams in the league, but very dangerous to consider them that because a couple of reasons. A, their overall record, they have a winning record. Their record at home, they have a winning record. They've won 2 straight. They've gone on the road and beaten Michigan State. So this is not Nebraska that's 0-12.
No.
So you go to Northwestern, a team that you pretty much have to beat. You just lost to Illinois, which that's okay. That's a sustainable loss because of who they are. This one is not. As you try to build your NCAA tournament resume, you need a road win because you've given up 2 home losses. Northwestern is one of those that you kind of really need to steal.
Yeah, no, you do. It's one of those. I mean, especially because you've lost to Illinois and Michigan at home. You need to get some games on the road, and you got Maryland, and that helps. But you got to get some other road wins, and also you got to look at it as, okay, let's look at what's left on the schedule at home. It's pretty tough. I mean, you got or just in general. I mean, like, you follow this with Michigan State, Wisconsin, Ohio State. So, like, if you don't win this one, you might need to win 2 of those 3. If you win this one, you probably only need to win 1. I mean, I think they probably get in if they only beat teams they're supposed to beat the rest of the way. They could probably get in, but it's tight. You could really use another big one. I mean, like, if you're only gonna beat teams you're supposed to beat, you got to beat Northwestern at home. You got to beat Minnesota at home. That means winning both of those games in those places. So, like, but if you lose any of them, that makes it more necessary that you get a Michigan State or a Wisconsin or an Ohio State or a Purdue. It's just the margin of error becomes tight. I mean, they got a lot of the important wins they had to get. I mean, that they put themselves in good shape. There's a couple of losses that you want to have back. Certainly, Penn State on the road is a team that you should probably beat. You shouldn't get waxed by Michigan like they did.
Could have won the Iowa game. Really,
I mean, Iowa game on the road. If you don't just have an absolute turnover, destruction in the middle of. They've gotten way better at turnovers. I mean, that was a major issue in the first half.
Even in their big losses, like we saw the other day.
Yeah. I mean, it's come down drastically. They're sub 10 most of the time, and they went 23 in that one. Obviously it's different. Iowa does turn you over. I mean, they make a point to do it. They press you and stuff like that. But I mean, the press wasn't that good. I mean, there's a couple where they just kicked it around. Those are games you should win. So now, like, you've taken those, and that, like, you're still in a position that if you win the ones you're supposed to win, you're in good shape. But this has got to be the ones you're supposed to win. So basically, any one that you lose that you're supposed to win from now on, you absolutely have to come back with one you're not supposed to win. I think is really the important case here. They can't lose too many more that they should win. And if they lose a lot more than they should win, they need to win some ones that they shouldn't win.
I look at Indiana and you look at the record. It tells me I can see a team that's immature and growing because of their home record at 13-2. Well, overall they're 16-6. That's great. You can't ask for anything more than that from where they have come from. At home, they're 13-2. That's pretty stout with only the 2 losses coming from two big time teams. But their road record, again, it's a losing record, 2-4. They're the first. Well, actually, no, Ohio State is at 3-4, but they're the first team that has that really. You start to see it separates on the road between them and the guys below them. Rutgers is 2-7, Michigan 2-6, Iowa 2-5, and then it gets worse from that. But there's that demarcation line, and that's a seed differential to me. It's not going to keep them out of the tournament, but that is what's going to keep them from being a 7 seed versus an 8 or 9 seed. And that is not where you want to be, man. You just don't want to be playing the number 1 seed the second game into the tournament.
No, but I mean, obviously the good part is they're starting to get better. I mean, I think, again, you mentioned the sort of immaturity, and it's not a young team, but it's a young team together. I think that's the kind of piece you have to go back to. Xavier Johnson. I mean, I think you've seen a ton of maturity for him recently. I mean, he's a senior, he's a 4th-year guy, but he's a 1st-year guy with this group. He's a 1st-year guy with Mike Woodson, and I mean, he took a step back on Saturday against Illinois after he'd made a lot of progress. I mean, he did some really good things, but apparently, as far as doing what Mike Woodson wanted, he took a step back, as Mike made that pretty clear, saying he didn't get us into anything that I didn't call myself, is the way Mike put it. But he's figuring out how he sets people up. It basically felt like it seemed like that was something that was missing from his game. As much as he was good at scoring and assists or whatever, he has become more of a quarterback. And he kind of took a step back in that regard as far as Illinois is concerned. We know the pieces there, just guys getting used to each other, guys getting used to where they're supposed to be, how they're supposed to contribute, what they mean to this team, what their role is. That's been something that's gone on throughout the year, and the toughness is shown up slowly. And again, they've won their last 2 road games after they started 0-4, so it's getting better. Their ability to create their own energy on the road, to understand a mindset on the road, is getting better. So, that becomes, it again, tells you, though, that Northwestern is a game that you should win. When if you beat Maryland on the road, you should be able to beat Northwestern on the road. But as you mentioned, Northwestern's dangerous. I mean, you look at their losses, and it's 5 points, 6 points, 3 points. It's tight. So it matters. But they are that's improving, basically. Obviously, there was the Syracuse game. They lose the Wisconsin game. Those ones are tight, but Wisconsin, you blow the lead. Penn State's a brutal one, and then you get Iowa. And then it seemed like after that, they sort of realized, hey, we really got to do something about this, and they got better. Obviously, they beat a bad Nebraska team on the road, get you started, get you healthy. But then beating Maryland, I thought was a big deal. And so Northwestern, I think, will be a big deal. If they can get Minnesota on the road, that's a big one. Michigan State's going to be tough to get at Breslin, but I think they're at least figuring out how to win there. And if they end up with 4 road wins by the time the season's over, 4 or 5 road wins, they look a lot better.
And we've seen, going back to the Illinois game, where Kofi had a big game, but we've seen that happen before. It came down to shooting for Indiana and Illinois, obviously, as they shot the ball very well from outside, 10 of 23 from behind the arc, which was 10 more 3-point attempts that Indiana even put up. So which they hit 3 of. So Illinois hit 7 more 3-point shots than Indiana.
Yeah.
The perimeter defense was not there. We talked about it. I mean, if those guys go off, that was going to be a problem. Frazier and crew, and they did. And so they are able to do what they needed to do to get it done. But of course, if the game before they went 4 of 11, I think, against Minnesota, they still were able, or Wisconsin, they were able to win that game, but that's not always the case. But now, so Indiana has to turn their focuses on just doing what they can do and staying within their game. One of the comments we had earlier from Race was saying, he said that they just still need to slow down and take their shots. They sometimes allow teams to get them out of what they're trying to do. And especially in games like Illinois or Purdue, where things are changed because of personnel reasons.
Right.
They don't seem in the Purdue game. It worked to Indiana's benefit. They kept using the ball outside and getting movement outside. And the Illinois game, when they would get Trace Jackson back in, they kept trying to force the issue that just wasn't going to work. I was a little surprised that they didn't make an adjustment there and try to do something different, because they didn't stop trying and it just never worked.
Yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of pieces there to kind of break down. I think on the offensive end, the fact that Jackson Davis was out about 4 minutes into the first half, I think it took him a while to figure out what was going to work. And I mean, we talked to him on Thursday, and he was saying, no, I think, my athleticism is going to work for me. And I think what he tried to do, and he was, somewhat successful on a couple occasions, was sort of bringing Coburn out a little bit and driving around him. I mean, that was kind of his view. It's like, okay, I've got to get him away from the rim so I can beat him. And he did on occasion, and it stopped working after a while. Kobe did, I thought, a better job there. But I think he was going to have to try it until he figured out it didn't work. And when it figured out it didn't work, game was almost over, because he hadn't had that first half to get himself into a rhythm, see what was going to work and what didn't. The 3 points was an interesting piece as far as offense was concerned, or as far as the Illinois defense was concerned. Because they did that well for about 25, 30 minutes. I think Illinois was 6 of 18, and you'll take 33% from them. Like, they're going to put up a lot. Like, you can live on 6 of 18. They got 4 of their last 5. And that's a big deal. That makes that number look gaudy. And they really lost their legs. I thought that was a big piece to it, is you have a combination of like Kofi wore Trace out, and Trace didn't even play the first half. And because you're running into a 285-pound wall, that guy's there is not one single inch of give on that human being. You are running into 285 pounds of bricks, basically.
He looks like he's got about 5% of body fat on him.
Less. I mean, he is it is muscle on top of muscle.
He's huge.
You didn't know you could grow muscles. There are muscles on Kofi Coburn. He's just a massive human being. And I remember Trace walking away dazed. He literally was he was running into a tank over and over and over again. And that is a massive human being, and it wears you out in a short time frame. But it's the guys had to cover so fast. There was so much read and recover. They're doubling down. They're running back out. I mean, there was so much that you had to do to close them out, to be able to deal with him in the middle and run back out and close out. And they knew they had to do it. And there's a wear and tear. Even if you know you have to do it, doing it for 40 minutes is a different animal. You know, like it's just because it's just like when you have to like run that much, and they expend a lot of energy on defense. I mean, they bring a lot of pressure. They try to get up in your face. Indiana does, but there is a tax to that. You know, there is a tax on your body to that. Like, especially if you're going to cheat in and try to double down and try to do something there, and you know, you got to be a little bit indiscriminate about it because everybody out on the floor can shoot. You know, you can't pick a guy to double off of that you're going to say, okay, well, I'm going to give him, you know, and I won't give the rest of these guys. You know, if DeMonte Williams, Jacob Grandison, Trent Frazier, and Alfonso Plummer are on the floor, there's no option. There's no guy that you cheat off and think you're going to be better off. Like DeMonte Williams only has like 11 or 12, but he can still burn you if you hand it to him. And the rest of them have like 25, 30. So, or like 40, and Alfonso's got like 50. So, you know, like, you can't pick your poison. You just got to run like a crazy person all day, and by the 5-minute mark, you're gassed, and they were.